Hello everyone, welcome to the latest Insurance Nexus webinar. My name's Paul Laughlin, the founder of Laughlin Consultancy, and I'm here to share with you a webinar where we get opportunity to hear from some really leading thinkers in the field of AI and insurance. Now, I know we use some jargonized words maybe in the introduction to this, and saying we're going to transcend performance can sound a bit super and grand. But what we're really about here is managing to hear from people who within insurance businesses are actually using AI to make a difference. How have they found a way to move beyond just process automation, to harness the power of AI to be more intelligent about that? Better for the customer, better for the business, even within an insurance sector that sometimes, let's face it, gets criticized with being a bit behind the times in terms of take-up of technology. So I'm delighted to see so many people signed up to this. We've had over 1,000 people subscribe to this webinar, so I hope you're going to get real value out of it. What I'm going to do soon is introduce each of our speakers and give them an opportunity to share with us just 5 minutes, quite a challenge for them, of what they have found is really in their experience useful about AI and how it can help with automation in an insurance business. And when you've had a chance to have your appetite whetted by hearing from all of them, got some thoughts going, we're going to provide plenty of time for you to raise any questions you've got, so that we focus the majority of this webinar on addressing the topics that are of interest to you, what's going to help make a difference in your business. So without further ado, I'm delighted to move on to our first speaker, Alessandra. She's the head of Analytics Solutions Center within Generali, a woman with significant insurance background and real understanding of automation. So I'm delighted to hear from Alessandra about what's made a difference for her. So I'll raise the 5-minute challenge with you, Alessandra, and I'll give you the same question I'm going to give to the other speakers. Would you briefly share with us your experience with using AI to improve automation in an insurance business?
Yes, sure. Hello, everybody. I just wanted to give you a bit of context, and is what is the Analytics Solution Center? The Analytics Solution Center is a group of 18 people, all coming from the insurance business. So we do have an insurance background that have a strong background in terms of analytics, statistics, data science, and so on. And they have been selected after a very challenging process to actually work and apply data analytics in all its senses to solving some business challenges in the insurance sector. So what we have been doing so far, and I go immediately to the analytics and to the artificial intelligence, is actually working to make our business more successful. So either identifying tasks that can be automated so that we can dedicate our valuable resources to the more, let's say, complex ones, or to understand which are the areas where we can actually focus our claims handler and the special investigation units when we have fraud detection. So to go a bit more in detail, we are working actively in setting up some fraud detection systems in the different countries, the different companies in the group. We are working in everything that has to do with cross-selling, upselling, and churn prediction and churn prevention. We are also using artificial intelligence to understand within a claim to automate the process in the intelligent way. So understand where is the name of the customer, what is the type of treatment that this customer has received, and then to automate the payment. Moreover, we have applied a combination of artificial intelligence and RPA to understand and to support our procurement department. So to look at, we have a centralized system for our vendors, and we analyze the documents. The RPA fills in and sort of does a formal check that everything has been loaded in the system, but then through AI we actually look if the documents that have been uploaded are what is required for that specific vendor for that specific amount and so on, as well as we check the validity of the documents that have been uploaded, and if the case, we sort of open an alert to say the document is about to expire, therefore this has to be requested once again. And finally, the last activity we are currently working on is image analytics. So we are currently investigating how to analyze images, specifically motor claims images, but not restricted to, for let's say a twofold purpose. One is detecting fraud. This is something that is definitely not doable by a human being. So we actually check whether a picture has been already used by some other in some other claims, or even potentially in another company of the group. And this is the first purpose. The second purpose is understanding the type of damage and assessing the amount of the damage, the severity, and so on, in order to pay or to partially automate the refunding process. And I think that with 25 seconds, I am done.
Well done, well done. It's quite a challenge. Can I quickly ask? It's only due to my own ignorance. What does RPA stand for?
Robotic process automation.
Right, great. Okay, that makes sense. I think we've already got one question related to that, so I'm sure we'll come back to it. Thank you very much, Alessandra. Really useful, and brought out a number of examples to bring to life exactly what you're talking about. Okay, everyone, I'm going to move on to our second speaker to give you this opportunity to hear across our experts a range of examples that might be relevant for you. Our second speaker is Roger Lewis. Roger's the Chief Underwriting Officer for NN Group, a significant and distinguished career within insurance, clearly someone who has a real understanding of the insurance business. So interested to hear from you, Roger. Same question. Could you share with us your experience with the 5-minute challenge of using AI to improve automation in an insurance business?
Of course. Good afternoon, everyone. I think, as Alexander did, just 10 seconds of context, really. As you say, I'm the Chief Underwriting Officer of NN Group. I also have a few other responsibilities. One of them is for our data science hub, or data analytics hub, as we call it, which is a hub based in Prague, but serves our businesses globally, from sort of Japan back across to Europe, etc. The interest for me in this area is probably somewhat obvious, in so much as underwriting, I think most people would see as a key area where artificial intelligence and intelligent automation can be put to very, very good use. We are currently looking to see how we can focus our very experienced underwriters on high value, more complex cases, but automate using the data that we're gathering the more simple processes, if you like, or more simple decisions that need to be made. One of the great benefits that we're seeing coming through from work in this area is we're now able to use external data far better than we could previously do, and sort of attach it or merge it with our own internal data. And that is beginning to throw up some very, very interesting outputs, which I think is going to help us to underwrite much more accurately, know exactly what risk we've taken on, and also then be used, of course, for the future for predicting claims costs, etc., which incidentally is something else I'm responsible for. The second area I'll just mention, clearly I could go on about underwriting all day, but the second area I mentioned is we're doing a lot of work with artificial intelligence in what I call the customer engagement space. So one of the things that we're very conscious of as a business, and I think probably everybody on this call is that we really need to engage with customers far better. We need to demonstrate we understand them better, and we need to produce products that they're actually interested in. And we're currently running some work to have a look at what we call the sort of propensity to buy model, to see how we can use artificial intelligence to judge when our customers or clients are likely to buy either a product similar to what they already have, or maybe a different style of product. And of course, linked to that is then to create a sort of virtual underwriting and claims world to ensure that this is a very seamless and easy process, so it's very much easier for them to do business with us. I think the final area, I'm not sure how long I've got left, actually about a minute, I think, that we're working on very heavily is we are a great believer that in order to make best use of automation, we do need to get this embedded within the senior management of the organization. We are spending a lot of time ensuring that we spend the right amount of time on change management and leadership to ensure that we make best use of these techniques and the technical competence around it. And that's also throwing up lots of really good examples as to where companies can make very, very good use of artificial intelligence, or as I often refer to it as intelligent automation. So there's some examples. Clearly there are many more, but they're the three that come under my control, and I thought it'd be useful to share with you.
Great, thank you very much, Roger. Really well done again in terms of fitting that in the 5 minutes and giving us plenty of examples to touch on. And I'm sure there are themes we're going to come back to here. Glad to hear about that engagement with the senior management and some consistency with things I heard from Alessandra as well. So I'm sure we'll come back to that. Well done. Okay, just to introduce our third speaker then, everybody. Our third speaker, Christophe, is from AXA. Now, Christophe must be good at this topic because his job title is Head of Artificial Intelligence Digital Transformation. So it's got to be the sexiest one so far. So I'm delighted to hear from Christophe, and I will present him with the same challenge as the others. Could you briefly share with us, Christophe, your experience of using AI to improve automation within an insurance business?
Yeah, sure. So as introduced by Paul, I'm head of artificial intelligence at AXA, and honestly, I think one of the main area for improving automation with AI is obviously as a support for robotics. Right? It was already mentioned by Alessandra, but it's most commonly known as cognitive automation or intelligent automation. Of course, I could speak about the chatbots that can help reducing the calls and the call center amount of people, then the predictive AI then that you can use to proactively contact your customers or predict the churn, etc. But I think for today I will just limit myself to cognitive automation. So very simply, if you take a usual business process, it starts with data input, then you need to pre-process the data, and then you need to retrieve business information, and then you need to take a decision, and that finally leads to an action, right? I think nowadays robotics is very good at retrieving business information in multiple legacy systems that we all struggle with, and then it's also very good at taking action. But it's very bad at pre-processing the data and taking decision where the rules are a bit more complex to hard code. And on the other hand, I think these two complex steps for robotics are common domains of artificial intelligence. So the pre-processing of data is called information extraction, that is based on computer vision, and the decision step is called machine learning. So I'm sure you probably all have information extraction systems for example, in your inbound where you do simple OCR. You probably all have machine learning that are running behind some models in your analytics or pricing department or underwriting department. But I think in order to be really successful with cognitive automation, you need two critical elements, right? It's the good use cases, obviously, and a very low marginal cost of introducing a new decision or a new document where you need to extract the information. And to reduce the marginal cost, I think you need to really move from a lab to a factory. That is for information extraction or decisional AI. And you really need to stop looking at all these things from an opportunistic angle, but you really need to look at it from a holistic approach, because opportunistic, I can tell you from experience, it will fail. So what it means is that you need a common platform for both extracting information, regardless of the document, and a platform that helps you to streamline your decisional models. And so the second element was the right use cases, and there I think you also need to do a lot of work so that your business actually understands what is AI, what it can do, and what it cannot do. It's very important. And one thing that worked very well for us is writing down some detailed and very educative frameworks on those technologies that helps the operation to identify the right use cases. And for me, I fundamentally believe that AI and robotics working together, you can solve a lot of, if not most of your business process issues, and you can probably automate almost half of that. So generally speaking, and I will close with that, I think people focus usually too much on what AI can do for you or for them, and they forget to think about what they can do for AI and what they need to change in their organization to make sure that AI will be successful.
Great.
That's it.
Thank you very much, Christophe. Great way to end there. Clear message and a slightly different voice as well, which is really useful to hear. Thank you very much for sharing that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, by the way, to everybody that sending the questions through. We've got a number of questions coming through so far. Feel free to be already sending your questions if things are sparked by what you're hearing from our speakers. And I'll move on now to our fourth expert. Delighted to welcome Francesco. And Francesco is a tech investor and a complexity scientist, and an extensive blogger and writer as well. I've benefited personally from him being a guest blogger on my blog as well. So delighted to have him on here. Know you've got a real experience in insurtech and the use of AI. So I'm happy to share with you the same challenge, Francesco, the 5 minutes to briefly share your experience with using AI to improve automation in an insurance business.
That sounds great. First of all, thanks, Paul, for this webinar. It's really exciting to be here. I should probably be the guy that brings sort of like a different perspective to this talk, in a sense that I'm very likely the less knowledgeable here in insurance. I do have like an academic background, and I'm right now the small companies guys. I've been doing like some consulting work and working with startups for a while now. I did some work with insurance as well, a big insurance company, and I resonate a lot with what my colleagues have been saying in the last 15 minutes, especially Alessandra and now Christophe, because I did very similar project in the past, from fraud detection to customer profiling to sentiment analysis, different things, right? But I really like the flow of the conversation, so I want to just move it a bit and zoom out at like 10,000 feet and start saying something that might sound a bit controversial, which is we are talking about machine learning automation, intelligent automation, and we are always thinking that these type of technologies are there to solve our problem. What I really think is that they don't. And the reality is that machines don't solve our problem, they simply change them. And this is what Christophe was saying, right? We need to be very good at managing expectation, managing the hype, finding in the company someone that can understand what AI can do for us, what AI cannot do for us. And this actually brings me to the main point of my 5 minutes talk here, which is what I've been seeing in the last 5 years or so is that one of the main problems with, especially with insurance companies, is that there is not enough design in how you run an AI project. And when I say that there is no design, I mean that sometimes, well, first of all, you don't really know what problem you're solving, right? Even like the problem might be too big, too small. You didn't do your homework well enough, in the sense that you didn't map the entire value chain, or you didn't create an ontology for the process, for the standard insurance process. So basically, you are like simply getting a solution and searching for problems afterwards, which should be probably the other way around. So you have a problem, you look for something to solve it. And then what often happens is that people don't really question whether AI is useful in a specific context. Sometimes simply because we hear people speaking about AI, there is a lot of hype around, we want to use AI for whatever purposes, whatever tasks. The reality is that sometimes we don't really need AI or machine learning to solve a specific problem, and this is why project fails. And then, of course, there's like a data issue, a big data issue. For insurance, likely enough, there is not like so much the problem of false positive or false negative. It's not like healthcare, right? But I don't know how much time I have, but I just want to say like a very last remark, which has been my one of the things that I've been saying for years now. Something that happens in the insurance business specifically is that when you bring into the company something like AI, people tend to think that they can solve everything straight away with that type of technology, with automation, with AI, with machine learning, call it whatever you feel like. The reality is that you need to start small. You need to pick a simple project, something that is potentially speaking repetitive. We can say like boring task in some sense. That is like high value but potentially low risk, and start digging on that. Start focusing on one specific problem in your value chain, especially because I'm assuming that. Well, I'm really happy that Christophe is here because he can bring like a different angle to this conversation, and also the other speaker. But usually insurance companies, I mean, not all of them, they have like an AI team or an analytics team. So they need to struggle between buying mentality against building in-house thing. So it's not that easy. I mean, there are many problems in running an AI team and AI project internally. So I would say it again: start small, start learning about this stuff, and focus on learning rather than outcomes.
Great. Thank you, Francesco. Useful thoughts on giving, as you say, a different perspective and the need to think about the way you design the project and how to start small, etc. Thank you very much, all four of you. Plenty of wisdom there to share on AI. And I'm delighted to say we've already got the questions piling through. So I will give priority to sharing questions that have come through from people on the webinar. Everyone, please still feel free to come through with your questions. And then if we still have time, I want to follow up a few themes that were shared in that snippet of wisdom from each of our speakers. So in the order they were raised, let me go to the first question is for you, Alessandra. It came from, I think I'm pronouncing this right, Kumaravel, and it's what RPA tool is used for data capture in Generali? Would you feel free to share which tool, Alessandra? Hello, can you hear me okay?
Sorry, I was in mute. No, I would have no problem in sharing it, but I don't know which is the tool that is being used, because as I said, we are working on the AI side. So what I know is that there is an RPA tool that actually collects the documents that have been loaded on the system and prepares this. It does some simple operations, but I don't really know. It's my fault. I mean, I think my team member that actually works would be able to answer this question, but as we are challenging the other side of it, so how to get inside the document the relevant information to understand that if you have to load your whatever certificate, you're actually loading this certificate rather than your, I don't know, the list of the shopping you have to do on a Friday night. I know more about this part than the other one. I can share it in offline if you like. I can get the information.
Okay, all right, lovely. We'll try and come back to that offline. Thank you, Alessandra. Next question is for you, Roger. We had Wendy raising the question, could you say more about the areas of leadership that need to be well developed? I know you touched on that leadership challenge.
Yes, of course. Good afternoon, Wendy, and everyone else. Yeah, I think the context here is that for some years now, and I've been part of this, we've all been doing or observing lots of highly intelligent people that are very good at coding and putting together algorithms, et cetera, and predictive models, all of this. But I think the one thing that we've failed to do, and I think I did too, to be honest, and I've really woken up to it, is to ensure that at all levels of the business, people are engaged and they realize this isn't some sort of academic research and development that's going on. This is a major opportunity for insurance companies to effectively revolutionize themselves. It's the first time I've seen something brand new that's exciting in the last few years come to our marketplace, which I think can help us tremendously as companies, and certainly fight off any competition, etc., from new players. It's an opportunity for us to demonstrate our ability to modernize, if you like, and I think it'll very much keep us in the game. And with that in mind, one of the things that we've set off to do in the NN Group, which for those that don't know is based in The Hague in the Netherlands, but we have a sort of pretty much a global reach, is to start a process of engaging and educating with all of the local management teams. So this is from CEOs of the local countries right through their management teams, ensuring that people that are responsible for risk or underwriting or marketing or finance, what it is well aware of the opportunities that are being presented to them here. And this has had a tremendous effect in getting the use of data science, data analytics, and the various components of it to be embedded within the sort of culture of decision making. So rather than thinking about, I don't know, let's say we took claims for a moment, rather than saying, well, we need to cut our claims costs or we need to improve the speed with which we pay claims, etc., then what we're tending to do is look at key functions of the insurance company, claims being one, and then work backwards and then work out what I call a data science or digital solution to ensure that we are effective in all of the key parts of that process. And that effectiveness is linked to our obsession, which we should all be having, the people on this call, with providing a much better customer experience throughout the whole customer journey, whether it be when they're buying a product, when it's being underwritten, when we're paying the claim, whether it's a service call, etc. So what we're trying to do is take the key functions of the insurance company, link them to other key functions, I've just mentioned 3 or 4 of them, and work out a digitalized or automated solution where we can in that particular space and engage senior management in that from the word go.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. That's useful, Roger. Alessandra, I'd like to come back to you because you got rather foisted with the RPA tool question. We've had a question that I think follows up on Roger's theme there, saying it's a question from Mike. Said there's a lot of conversation around AI being used behind the scenes. What about AI real time in service of the customer, such as customer care applications? Do you have any examples to share where it's a bit more customer facing, the use of AI?
Not yet. We are not currently implementing this. We have a request to start looking into the speech analytics area. For instance, what some of the companies, one of the companies that we do have, it's Europa Assistance in Italy, they have introduced a sort of a chatbot, but vocal, so it's a virtual assistant
All
to
right, yeah.
actually support people to get their tow track. So if you're stuck in the middle of the road, and basically the operator will ask always the same questions, and the same, and like, where are you, what kind of car, what is the problem, and so on and so forth. So we have created a virtual assistant that will actually ask these questions, and then give you also tracking on where the tow track is, so that you know exactly when it will get and there, and what to expect. So this is
Okay.
one of the applications that have been developed in terms of analytics, or if you want, artificial intelligence. We do not have at the moment other applications specifically on the call center. Although, as I said, we are starting to think at speech analytics for the call centers, while in my previous experience, so I was formerly working for Sky and Sky the television, and in that case we did implement a speech analytics tool that would understand or process all the calls that were handled for, let's say, a double purpose. The first is, of course, for quality reason, and the second is also to get some insights of what were actually the reasons why the people were calling, or to get some feeling about the mood of the people in specific context. Like, I don't know, they did not acquire the rights for Champions League, and so they wanted to understand what the people felt about this, and speech analytics was implemented for this purpose. So it's not insurance, but I've seen that implemented.
Okay, great. That sounds really interesting, that sort of Alexa type piece on the motor side. Thank you. Christophe, perhaps I could bring you in with a couple of questions. Firstly, I'd like to divert the same question to yourself as well, as to whether you've got any examples of AI being used more directly facing the customer rather than behind the scenes, as the term was used.
Yes, no, sure. So obviously you have the entire field of chatbots. It can be helped to just replace an existing, I would say, channel. It can be, so where we currently investigate or putting it in production, you could have a chatbot that is used for during the sales flow. So you could have the full sales flow done via a chatbot, or a chatbot that is supporting your sales flow.
Could I just ask, is that something that is actually happening at the moment, or is this just a potential idea?
No. So it's not something that is put aside and that we will look into it in the next years. It's something that we are doing now. Both actually. We are just now checking what is the best of the two approaches to launch first. So that's one, the sales flow. Obviously, I think a lot of things happen, and again, we do it internally for your employees. It's not customer facing, but let's say it's end user facing.
People facing.
Yeah, let's say people facing. And I think, again, from an AI strategy point of view, I think if you only deliver AI solutions that are supposed to ease the life of people only to customers, I think employees will feel bad about it, because you do everything for the customers and not for them. So if you really want to embark your employees as well on this wonderful AI journey, I think you also need to provide them with something. So we are doing this some stuff there, and again, then you have other let's say non-traditional ways of interacting with your customers that is not put in production, but we are heavily developing. It might be in the field of healthcare, where you can support, for example, your customers when they have health problems, right? So first line support, rather than having to wait for someone to answer your call, maybe, or whatever. So that's one. And then everything that is then, if you put aside chatbots for a moment, that is with computer vision. Where you put together with augmented reality. For example, when you have your car that is broken, that you help the customer with augmented reality to show the right places of the car. It might be for your house, where you make some pictures of the house, and then suddenly you have a 3D view of your house, and you can exactly show where is the damage and so on. So yes, we do a lot, of course, also from a customer-facing point of view.
Okay, thank you. That's useful. I've also been asked by Agita to ask whether you've got examples of an actual reduction in customer calls and emails because of this automation.
So yes, so one of the big drivers, to be fair, especially in the claim process, where we automate the inbound processing, is where we reduce. I wouldn't say drastically, but from a double-digit percentage, the amount of calls. Because of course, if you are able to process it almost instantly, and you can provide back as an action an answer, or at least a feedback, or where the customer is in the process, then you won't receive any calls. So in terms of chatbot, we are not yet putting a lot of let's say big use cases on chatbots. We want to be very mature when we will put it, right? So I wouldn't say that chatbots are really now solving the biggest issues in our call centers, but actually working behind the scenes and solving the cases faster, and ensuring much higher rate for straight-through processing is definitely helping us to reduce significantly the customer calling.
Okay, thank you very much, Christophe. Francesco, can I perhaps turn to you? We've had a question from Ramesh asking, is there one complex process step, or even a whole process, that you feel is best addressed to date by AI? You mentioned that it's not always appropriate to try and fix everything with AI. Is there one particular part of an insurance process, or a whole insurance process, that you think is best addressed by AI?
Well, as I said before, there might be people in this conversation that are more suitable to answer this question than I am. But to come back to what I was saying before, I think that regardless of the specific process that you might want to tackle, the things that you need to look for are pretty, I want to use the word straightforward, even if it's not like really straightforward, but things that are intuitive in some sense, which is specifically, as I was saying before, repetitive tasks, something that is error prone, so something that we as human fail to do sometime. Something that, well, I was saying the word boring before, which is like a word that I like very much, but it's not probably like a good word in this context. But what I want to say is repetitive, error prone, but at the same time something that insurance business matters a lot. So something that is like high value and with a downside which is not that big. If you look, for instance, at healthcare, I guess that is pretty easy to understand that there is like a downside which is much bigger than insurance or finance or anything else, right? But here there are many specific pain points that can be solved. And honestly, if I need to just name one, I would say that probably the claim process is really broken in the way it's been done in the last like 50 years. So if I will pick one specific pain point, and my colleague in this panel can actually corroborate these thesis or not, but I think that's something that really requires like AI in automation attention. There was someone, I think it was Alessandra before. There was
Alessandra did touch on the claims process.
And also like image analytics, all the type of field. That's something that you can. Well, I was mentioning claim for a specific reason, because it can be solved from many different perspectives and with different AI tools. It might be solved through image analytics. It might be solved through chatbots. It might be solved. Well, even the claim processing itself, it's a big process, right? So you need to break it down and understand where to start from.
Great, that makes sense here. The start small ethos that you were sharing with us earlier. Okay, quick question for Roger, and then I'm going to ask some panel-wide questions where each of you can jump in as you see fit. Roger, quick one we've had through from Martin. just asking you to elaborate on that usage of external data. You mentioned some exciting things happening when you're using external data more. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, of course. Good afternoon, Martin. Yeah, I think this is at an embryonic stage, but I mean, if you just to put it into context, if you think of underwriting, for instance, has traditionally used what I call historic data. So it may be asking clients how tall they are, what their blood pressure is, or whatever it may be. But whichever way you look at it, it's been making use of historical and often manually sort of generated data. And on top of that, one of the things that's always worried me around underwriting decisions is there's a high degree of subjectivity, in my view, that I've seen over the years. And I think that provides a terrible service to a disservice rather to our clients. So I think the benefits of the sort of revolution that we're going through in terms of the use of AI, etc., is that we're going to be able to, in the future, and this is embryonic, so we're just starting to look at this, but we're starting to have a look at how we could match external data with the sort of traditional underwriting type data that we may get to make a decision. And probably one of the good examples of that, and there may be somebody on the webinar from here, but I mean, if you took, and I know Alessandra will be familiar with this, but if you took the vitality approach in Generali vitality, then there's an example of collecting data that traditionally we haven't done on clients and being able to use that data to then make more informed underwriting decisions, if you like. The other issue is that we can use external data and match it much more around such simple things as postcodes, driving habits, all of this type of stuff. And that all helps us build a more rounded picture of our client, which one, enables us to make a much more accurate underwriting decision, regardless of which product and the way they're purchasing. But perhaps more importantly than that, it allows us to redefine the relationship with our clients. It enables us to produce products for them that are much more customer-centric, that they might actually be interested in buying and us having to sell to them, if you like. And so I think the spin-off from using external data in the future will be absolutely enormous. And I think the days of purely using historical data to make a decision will be over in a few years' time. And I think we'll use a suite of data to start making decisions about the risk that our clients pose on a particular product.
Great, thank you, Roger. I know a lot of my data science contacts would agree with you. Okay, I'm going to open the remaining questions open to the whole panel. So all four of you, feel free to jump in where we've got something to share on this. We've had a question from Pedro. Pedro asks, any experience about use of AI in claim prevention products, applications or services? Roger, I know you touched on that, but anyone else got examples of AI helping with preventing the need for claims?
No.
Well, it's Roger again. The answer is really no, not directly. However, I think the example I gave earlier of the use of health and wellness schemes, such as Vitality, etc., I think is one of the growing examples whereby insurers are going to be able to turn as much into, I don't know what we could call it really, where they sort of guide clients. They'll be sort of almost providing advice on a number of aspects, added value sort of stuff, which will of course help prevent claims in the future. I mean, a good example of that is, you know, these days, if you look on the internet, you see so many companies providing sort of healthy eating or exercise type plans and habits. And of course, if they were tailor-made to the clients, so if you took a client who perhaps shows some risk factors of getting type 2 diabetes as an example, and they have a critical illness policy with us, then there would be an example where we could tailor make some advice to that client, which one is much better client engagement, and secondly, should hopefully prevent claims. So I think there are good examples going on, and I think Generali's Vitality program would be a good example of that. But I personally don't have any examples within the NN group at this stage.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Next
Yeah,
question.
actually, can I?
Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
no,
just
jump in. Yeah.
sorry. No, I was just jumping in because I was thinking that building on what Roger was saying, this is a great question that Pedro asked. The problem is that it's not strictly an insurance-related question in the sense that everything that happened before the claim process starts, it belongs to different fields, right? Because in that sense, as Roger was saying, that's for instance an healthcare problem to some extent. Or
I'm not fully agree in this point. I think that from my perspective, the insurance business has to move from the standard, let's say, reactive refund process to the proactive approach where based on the experience, based on previous patterns, based on the knowledge that we can develop, we can actually prevent or support our customers to be more aware of what is going on. For instance, in terms of driving, for instance, in terms of home insurance, I'm thinking about everything that has to do with IoT. Of course, if you're talking about a traditional insurance where you see your customer once a year, this is quite unlikely to happen. But if you think of a situation where you have a sort of an ecosystem, so you have sensors, you have providers, and you have data analytics on all this, then you can actually move out of the corner of I'll be here if anything happens, but I will help you to prevent this happening. And so it will be a service rather than a refund. And I think this is key for the future of this industry. Otherwise, it will.
No.
I mean,
I completely agree, Alessandra.
Okay, I'm going to call time on this actually. Christophe, I hear your point particularly. I'm only going to call time because I think it's a really rich, fertile topic to talk about. And we're going to be sharing at the end of this webinar, everybody, about an event that's coming up where you will get a chance to hear from these three battling it out on the future of insurance. So I think that's well worth possibly postponing until there's a bit more time. I'd just like to squeeze in, if I can, two quick other questions just to give chance to our webinar participants. One is a question from Kingsley, who I think fairly asks, are there any use cases where AI is used in B2B insurance? A lot of what each of you have shared as speakers are much more B2C. Any business insurance examples that anyone could share? I think that's a no then, Kingsley. Oh, go on.
So very quickly, so you can squeeze in your last question, right? But so yes, in the sense, so everything that is around fleet, where we provide telematics and then online where the fleet manager can actually manage themselves their fleet, and it goes actually together with preventing claims, because you provide better data on driving, and helping them to gamify how they will drive. You will reduce the amount of claims that you get, right? So yes, we usually go for when it goes for bigger programs like gamification of telematics, for example. We tend to do that with businesses.
Great. Okay, thank you very much, Christophe, for jumping in on that. I appreciate it. Okay, last question, all last chance to shine. I'd like an opportunity for you to share any integration of GIS analytics with what you're doing on AI. Anyone got anything to share with regard to AI and that location data?
It's not necessarily AI, but yes, we are doing integration. We are actually using location data to produce additional data sets for our underwriters. So using roads, distances, well, the MyDrive application uses information from the roads to understand the danger or the driving style. So if you drive in the same way but in two completely different roads, you would have two different scores. So this is one kind of information. The other is more static. You might want to say that depending on the height where your house is, your insurance premium for flooding would probably be different. The same is if you live close to a hospital and it's a health problem, or it's a health insurance, or maybe a fire insurance if you live not next to the police station, fire station. So this kind of information, which again is not strictly related to AI, but it's more on, let's say, the data analytics, the power of wisely and smartly using the available information. This we are doing, yes.
Great, thank you very much, Alessandra. Okay, thank you all four of you. You've been really good sports to fit in very tight time frame.
I had the name of, I wrote it in the chat, but probably you haven't seen it. The name of the RPA use it is UiPath.
Great, thank you very much. I did see it. Thank you very much. Now, yeah, that's
okay,
the answer
great.
for Kumuraval, and I should have said it was Dan who raised the question about GIS analytics. Thank you, Dan. Okay, thank you very much, all four of you, for sharing your expertise. I'm going to be quickly handing over soon to Mariana, because I'm so aware we've only begun to touch on this topic. Hearing the questions that you've each raised during this webinar, there's even more we didn't manage to get to. I think only goes to show there's much more to talk through about the application of AI to all parts of insurance, which sector, which product, which touch point experiences, and how do you bring together a better, richer understanding of your customers to implement this in a way that works for businesses. The good news is that there is an event coming up where 3 of our speakers will be there sharing their expertise with a number of other stellar lineups. So I'd like to bring in now, if I may, Mariana from Insurance Nexus. Do you want to share with us a bit about the Insurance AI and Analytics Europe event?
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you everyone for joining the webinar, especially Alessandra, Chris, Roger, and Francesco for the wonderful insights. Well, as Paul mentioned, I am Mariana Dumont from Insurance Nexus, and I'll be leading the Insurance AI and Analytics Europe Summit this year. They'll be taking place on 9th and 10th of October in London. And this is the largest insurance analytics summit in the region, bringing over 350 senior executives to explore how AI and advanced analytics are impacting claims, underwriting, and customer experience. More importantly, this conference will focus on how to unlock AI's full potential throughout the insurance organization. And we will be launching the conference brochure tomorrow, so make sure you request your copy today. And finally, I think you'll all be wondering, I will be sending the webinar recordings right after the webinar finish, and I really hope you all can join us in London in October. Thank you all again for your insights, and have a great day.
Great. Thank you very much, Mariana, and thank you for sharing that. Thank you once again for everyone joining. We will be passing on to all the speakers and to that conference as well every question that was raised. So don't forget to take an opportunity to join that and to listen into the webinar again. Thank you very much.